The police knocked on my apartment door at 6:12 on a Tuesday morning. Not rang. Knocked. Hard enough that I knew immediately this wasn't a neighbor complaining about noise. I opened the door half awake, still wearing sweatpants, and found 3 officers standing in the hallway. Behind them stood Detective Marcus Reed from the County Financial Crimes Unit. And behind him, my sister Olivia. Her mascara was smudged. She looked devastated. She held a tissue against her mouth like she was trying not to cry. "Ethan Carter?" the detective asked. "Yeah. We need you to come with us regarding an investigation involving the Carter estate." For a second I thought there had been some kind of mistake with Dad's paperwork. Then Reed said, "Approximately $248,000 was transferred from your late father's estate into accounts connected to you." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was impossible. "What are you talking about?" He handed me a folder. On top was a transfer authorization bearing my signature. Below it was a printout of an email sent from my address requesting expedited access to the estate funds. Then came the bank records. My name was everywhere. Olivia finally spoke. Her voice cracked perfectly. "Ethan, why would you do this?" I stared at her. And for the first time in my life, I saw absolutely nothing behind my sister's eyes. 3 weeks earlier, we had buried our father. Dad had spent 35 years building Carter Manufacturing from a garage workshop into a successful regional business. He wasn't a billionaire, but he was respected. Honest. The kind of man who paid employees before he paid himself. At the funeral, Olivia stood beside Mom greeting guests like a grieving saint. I remember thinking how strong she seemed. I should have noticed she never cried when no one was watching. After the service, Dad's estate attorney, Daniel Brooks, asked us to meet the following week to review the will. The meeting took place in a conference room overlooking downtown Naperville. Mom sat quietly twisting her wedding ring. Olivia arrived in a cream-colored blazer carrying a designer handbag and a stack of organized documents. I showed up 10 minutes early with a legal pad. Brooks cleared his throat. "Your father structured the estate equally between both children after taxes and charitable contributions." Olivia smiled politely. "That sounds exactly like Dad." Then Brooks frowned. He flipped through several pages, adjusted his glasses, and looked confused. "That's strange. What is it?" I asked. "The estate account balance is lower than expected." Olivia leaned forward. "How much lower?" Brooks hesitated. "Approximately $248,000. The room went silent. Mom whispered, "That's impossible." Brooks nodded slowly. "A transfer was processed 4 days ago." He turned the monitor toward us. The authorization form displayed my name. My signature. My email address. My chest tightened. "I didn't do that." Olivia looked at me with disbelief so convincing that even I started questioning my own memory. "Ethan," she said softly, "please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding." "It is." Brooks immediately contacted the bank and the authorities. By the time I left the office, the investigation had already begun. The next 48 hours destroyed my life. My employer placed me on administrative leave. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. Friends who had known me for 20 years suddenly became busy. Someone leaked the story online. A local news site ran the headline, "Financial analyst accused of stealing from late father's estate." The comments were brutal. Greed always comes out after a funeral. Imagine stealing from your own mother. People in finance are all the same. I wanted to scream that none of it was true, but the evidence looked airtight. When Detective Reed questioned me, he laid the documents across the table. "Your fingerprints are on the transfer authorization. Because I handled Dad's estate papers at the attorney's office. The email came from your account. I didn't send it." The funds were routed through an account opened in your name. I've never seen that account. Reed studied me for a long moment. You understand why this looks bad. Looking bad isn't the same as being guilty. For the first time, his expression softened slightly. No, he said. It isn't. I went to my mother's house that evening hoping she would believe me. The porch light was on. Dad's favorite chair was still visible through the living room window. For a moment it felt like nothing had changed. Mom opened the door but didn't invite me in. Mom, I need you to listen to me. Tears filled her eyes. Did you take the money? No. Then why is your name on everything? I don't know. Olivia appeared behind her, wrapped in one of Dad's old sweaters. Ethan, she said gently, this isn't helping Mom. I looked at my sister. Tell her I would never do this. Olivia lowered her eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore. That sentence hurt more than the accusation. Mom began crying. Your father trusted you. Something inside me cracked. I didn't betray him. But the door closed anyway. That night I sat alone in my apartment surrounded by boxes of Dad's belongings. Inside one box was an old photograph of Olivia and me at a county fair. She was 11. I was 8. We were laughing with cotton candy stuck to our faces. I kept staring at that picture trying to connect the girl in it with the woman who had just watched our mother shut the door in my face. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Check the transfer timestamp. That was it. No name. No explanation. I opened the bank documents again. The transfer had been authorized at 11:43 p.m. on the night Dad died. I remembered that night perfectly. Olivia and I had both been at the hospital until after midnight. Which meant one of two things. Either my memory was wrong. Or someone had forged the authorization while pretending I wasn't standing beside my dying father. For the first time since the police arrived, I felt something other than fear. I felt suspicion. And the person I suspected most shared my last name. I barely slept that night. The anonymous text kept replaying in my mind. Check the transfer timestamp. It wasn't proof of anything, but it was the first crack in the story everyone else had accepted as fact. The next morning, I called Daniel Brooks. I need copies of every digital document connected to Dad's estate, I said. There was a long pause. Ethan, he replied carefully, officially, I should tell you to let the investigation run its course. And unofficially? I've practiced estate law for 30 years. I've learned that paperwork doesn't lie, but people do. By noon, he had arranged for me to review the estate files in his office. Most people think digital documents are just files. Lisa Moreno knew better. She was one of the best independent digital forensics specialists in Illinois, and hiring her emptied nearly everything left in my savings account. She spent less than 10 minutes examining the estate records before looking up at me. Whoever created this wanted it to look perfect. What does that mean? She pointed to the metadata. The transfer authorization claims it was signed at 11:43 p.m. Right. But this PDF wasn't finalized until 2:18 the following morning. I frowned. So someone altered the document after the time it supposedly existed. My pulse quickened. Can you prove that? She nodded. I can prove someone edited it. She looked at another screen. And whoever did it forgot to erase something. She enlarged a login history. One username appeared repeatedly. O'Carter_admin. Olivia. Detective Marcus Reed wasn't easy to convince. When I handed him Lisa's report, he spent almost an hour reading every page. Finally, he leaned back. If this analysis is accurate. It is. Then someone manufactured evidence. He stood and walked toward the window. You understand what happens if we reopen this investigation. I've already lost my job, my reputation, and my family. I met his eyes. I don't have anything left to lose. The investigation changed overnight. Instead of asking whether I stole the money, detectives began asking who had access to my father's computer, financial records, and estate passwords. The answer was surprisingly short. Dad. Daniel Brooks. Me. And Olivia. Then another discovery changed everything. Security footage from Carter Manufacturing. Dad had installed cameras throughout the building years earlier after a break-in. One overlooked the executive office where he kept encrypted financial backups. The system automatically archived recordings for 90 days. No one had checked them. Until now. The footage showed Olivia entering the office alone 2 days after Dad's funeral. She looked around before sitting behind his desk. For nearly 40 minutes, she worked on his computer. She connected a flash drive. Printed documents. Shredded papers. Then carefully wiped the keyboard. When Detective Reed watched the recording beside me, he didn't say a word until it ended. Finally, he whispered. Well. That's going to be difficult to explain. A search warrant uncovered even more. The flash drive recovered from Olivia's home contained document templates identical to the forged estate paperwork. Deleted emails were restored from her laptop. One draft stopped everyone cold. Once Ethan is blamed, nobody will question where the money really went. There it was. Not suspicion. Not theory. Intent. Months of planning summarized in a single sentence. The civil hearing was packed. Local reporters filled the back rows. Former co-workers avoided looking at me. My mother sat between Olivia and me, clutching a tissue with trembling hands. Judge Eleanor Watkins entered the courtroom, and the room fell silent. Olivia looked as composed as ever. She still believed she could talk her way out of it. Her attorney argued that the digital evidence was circumstantial. Then Detective Reed testified. He presented the metadata. The login records. The recovered emails. The security footage. Finally, Lisa Moreno explained how the forged files had been created and why they could never have been authentic. Each answer chipped away at Olivia's carefully built story. When it was Olivia's turn to testify, confidence slowly gave way to panic. She insisted she had entered Dad's office only to organize paperwork. Then the prosecutor displayed an enlarged image from the security footage. The flash drive was clearly visible in her hand. Can you explain why you connected an external storage device before printing the transfer authorization? Olivia hesitated. I don't remember. The prosecutor clicked to the next exhibit. A forensic comparison matched the printer marks on the forged documents to the office printer used that afternoon. Another pause. Then came the recovered email draft. The courtroom became so quiet I could hear someone breathing behind me. The prosecutor read the sentence aloud. Once Ethan is blamed, nobody will question where the money really went. Olivia's face turned pale. For the first time since Dad died, she had no explanation. No performance. No tears. Only silence. After 3 hours of testimony, the judge ruled that the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrated deliberate fraud and intentional fabrication of estate documents. Criminal charges would follow. The money, nearly $250,000, was recovered from a series of shell accounts linked to Olivia through fraudulent business entities. She was taken into custody before leaving the courthouse. As deputies escorted her away, she turned toward me. For a brief moment, I searched her face for regret. I didn't find it. Only exhaustion. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me. Mr. Carter, do you forgive your sister? I looked at the cameras. Then at the courthouse doors. I spent months trying to prove I wasn't the person everyone believed I was. I paused. Today isn't about revenge. It's about truth. And the truth is worth protecting even when it comes too late. A week later, my employer called. They offered me my position back with a formal public apology. Friends who had disappeared suddenly remembered my phone number. Neighbors smiled again. None of it erased what had happened. Trust, once broken, doesn't magically return because a judge signs an order. The hardest conversation came with my mother. She invited me to the house one Sunday afternoon. Dad's chair was still by the window. Nothing inside the house had changed. Except us. She cried before saying a single word. "I'm sorry." I sat beside her. "I should have believed you." "I know why you didn't." "No," she whispered. "I believed the evidence because it was easier than questioning my own daughter." Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, she reached for my hand. "I lost one child to greed." Her voice broke. "I almost lost the other because I stopped listening." Sometimes people ask me what hurt the most. The investigation. The headlines. The courtroom. Losing my career. None of those. The worst moment was standing on my mother's porch while she looked at me like I was a stranger. Because accusations can destroy your reputation. But disbelief from someone you love. That reaches places no courtroom can ever repair. I still keep that old county fair photograph in my desk. 2 smiling kids covered in cotton candy. Whenever I look at it, I don't remember the woman who framed me. I remember the sister I thought I had. And that reminds me of something my father used to say. The truth doesn't always arrive first. But it always arrives. He was right.